big brown
We
box.
should probably do, just to
Gives me.
make sure we have enough time.
Charge the whole thing?
It'll charge the whole thing.
Up to
in
you, but
15 minutes.
I don't know how long the meeting will go.
It'll charge my phone.
Well,
It's
we
only
can
down
go through the
2%.
meeting,
I always
we
keep it
can
charged in the
adjourn
car.
to, if
Oh.
we want to,
Trickle charge it and
at
just
number
take it.
10.
That's great.
Okay.
And while we do the budget discussion, the budget discussion, because obviously it's related.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Rye Town Park Commission meeting of the Ides of March, March 15th, 2016. Debbie, please call the roll.
Gary Zuckerman,
Present.
Joseph Sack,
Here.
Dennis Pilla, Paul Rosenberg,
Here.
Benedict Salanitro,
Here?
Julie Killian.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Goldie, would you like to lead us?
Yes, sir. Hands over heart, and we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two sets of minutes to approve, January and February. Unless there are changes or corrections, may I have a motion and a second to approve both?
Motion? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Comments from the public? Yes, ma'am?
You want to go first? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he said me.
No, I pointed there, Goldie. Would you let this young lady go first?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Should I stay here or go?
No, please at the mic. Introduce yourself.
I don't know, I might get that too familiar with Mike. Hello, I'm Diane Horner, and I live at 129 Beach Avenue in the Rhinebeck section of the Village of Mamaroneck, which makes me a resident of Rye Town, obviously. And I've been living there for 46 years. And I'm here to talk about the Oakland Beach. And my family and I have been using Oakland Beach from almost the moment we moved here. And it is just, I think, the most beautiful beach between the Jersey Shore and all the way up to Connecticut. It's also the only beach, really, that's open to the public, because most of our shore, as you know, is taken up by private clubs. Anyway, a situation occurred more than once last summer where the pavilion was rented out on Saturday and Sunday afternoons, which put such stress on the parking at the beach that residents, as myself, couldn't even come into the park at all, couldn't use the beach. And I respectfully ask that you think long and hard about giving people permits. I mean, I know everybody's after money and making the park more viable financially and the beach, but I think the residents of Rye Town should come first. Sometimes recreation can't completely turn a profit. I just want to say also that the park staff there is wonderful. All the people that work for the town in the summertime, everybody is so nice. But twice last summer, it's not these parties at the pavilion have 10 or 20 people, but some of them can have as much as 150 people. And we came to the beach, my husband who's here, and my daughter and myself, and we couldn't get in at all. I mean, it was done. I mean, we already have a commercial property on the beach, Seaside Johnny's, which I know was brought in to make more revenue. And not that I'm against revenue per se, but I think it needs a balance. And I respectfully ask that you do a long, hard look at not renting the pavilion to parties on Saturdays and Sundays before 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goldie was next.
Okay, I am absolutely delighted to be here.
That's number one.
We're delighted to have you, Goldie.
I'm delighted to be here to see everybody I know for years. As a historian for the Village of Portchester, I'm in shock that there's no, well, Mayor Pillar is working, so I'm in shock that he didn't appoint somebody to come. And when I was at Rye Town Hall, which is in 220 Grace Church Street, and I go there to see Hopi and others there, she gave me the calendar for the 7:30 a.m., but she didn't tell me that there was going to be a park commission meeting. I just came early to get good parking. And when I saw Billy, who I love because Oakland Beach is the best beach in the whole area. It's the most beautiful beach. And I am happy that Billy allows me to pass out the concert programs when I come. And I was there that year, and I think it was last year, when all of a sudden we had a rainstorm, and then after that we had the most beautiful rainbow coming across. You can't see that anyplace else. Oakland Beach is the best for viewing and the best for everything. The only thing I was unhappy about is because I thought dogs were not allowed in the park. And when I see people bringing their dogs in, and the dogs are peeing on the bushes and everything, I'm very unhappy about that. I'm also unhappy because there are a lot of children that do come from the schools and everything else. And if they're there and if a dog runs and hits them or bites them, who's going to pay for it in Oakland Beach, which is the park, the best park in the whole area, the best park in the whole area. Our concerts are incredible because of Billy. He's just great, and a lot of people come for the concerts, which are usually when, in May?
No, it starts in June.
It starts in June. I don't have the agenda, so there's nothing I can do about it. But today is a very important day in the Village of Portchester. I don't know if you know it. It's cumulative voting today, and I was all over the place on cumulative voting. And we are the only village that I know of in the state of New York that's doing cumulative voting. I don't even know how many other states are doing it or have done it, because I don't know. But it's taking up a lot of time, a lot of time. Okay, thank you, Gary, for being head of the Rye Town Park Commission. And thank you, Joe Sack. I love Rye. I go to Rye all the time. And I have been at Disbro Park. I've been at Rye High School in the back. I go for the women's baseball tournaments. And I'm just all over, and the churches and everything. It's a wonderful, wonderful city. It's great. And I've been at Columbus Park. I've been at the park that's in, what's the name of it again? No, he knows, Gary, in Rye, in Rye Brook.
What, Pine Ridge?
Crawford Park?
Crawford.
Not Pine Ridge.
Crawford Park.
Crawford Park. That's the one. That's the one. And there's a lot going on, which is incredible. Okay?
Thank you,
you
Goldie.
for allowing me to
Thank you,
be
Goldie.
here.
And Goldie, in the future, generally, the Park Commission meetings are at 6 o'clock prior to the town meetings, and it
Yeah,
should
but
be on
I
the
didn't know
website.
that, and Hope didn't tell me.
Well, Hope deals with the town council meetings, so
Yeah.
it should be, it's on the website.
But
Okay?
I love
But
the- I
remember,
love-
it's at 6 o'clock on the same day as the town meetings.
Yeah, but I love the Oakland Beach, the Park Commission is incredible.
Thank you, Goldie.
Incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Philip Horner from Beach Avenue. There was a second point that I thought my wife was going to make, so I'll just get up and give it to you very briefly. On a couple of those Saturday and Sundays on the beach, when we got in, we actually turned away twice. The noise level from the parties was extreme. As she says, that you have ranges and you run a really tight ship on the beach. It's very nice. Everybody goes along with the rules. But you couldn't believe how loud it was because there was a DJ playing at, 100 decibels or something up there. And the Rangers felt that they had no jurisdiction over the party because it's a private event. So when you're looking at your rules for that, you might want to consider some kind of a noise level agreement that you don't really go too far.
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Horner. May I ask a question? I don't know that, that the Rye-Town Park Commission has noise ordinances, but the city of Rye, I believe, does. Am I correct, Joe?
Yeah, but this is during the day, so undoubtedly.
Well,
Well, I would just, even before that, and it doesn't have to be right now, but Bill, if you could, since I'm new to the commission, I would like to understand what kinds of things do go on there, what we allow, what we don't allow, and how often parties go on. You don't have to do it right now, at some point, just so we can understand
yeah.
the nature of,
Yeah, the
you know,
the
is there
pavilion
even-
is used quite often, obviously. And I'm as new as you are, Julie.
no, I'm saying it doesn't have to be now, I just, my interest of
But
learning more and
I'm
more.
curious because we have the same problem basically in terms of noise at Crawford Park in Rye Town, which is in the Rybrook police jurisdiction. So the town really has no noise ordinance, so the Rybrook ordinance is enforced by the Rybrook Police Department. So the question is, does that apply to noise emanating out of the park that?
Well, in response to your question, Gary, certainly the city of Rye would have a city code that would govern loud radio playing, but to the extent that whoever is using the pavilion is doing so via a license agreement, I would say it would be pretty simple to add a sentence into the license agreement simply saying that if asked by park staff to turn down the radio, they'll turn down the radio. So that should be a pretty easy fix.
Right, reasonably turned down, not to,
Right. So, and then beyond that, I'm pretty sure that Seaside Johnny's has dedicated spots, but I'm pretty sure that the pavilion does not.
Correct.
So anyone that shows up to go to the pavilion is in the same line that someone showing up going to the beach would be in as far as getting a parking spot. So, so as far as that goes, it's first come, first served for everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
I was told,
I think you probably need to go to the podium.
I was told by the parking attendant that stands like at the bottom of the circle before you come in, that one of the particular days that we couldn't get in, that somehow the people that had rented the pavilion had reserved parking spaces, and that, I'm sorry, but that really got my dander up, because
That
like
never
I
occurred.
said, that's what I was told.
Yeah.
And I
Terry.
and as I said, 46 years I've been paying taxes here, and I just thought that was horrendous to deprive them.
I don't know that that's true. Terry, Terry, would you like
That's
to
what
make a
I-
comment on that?
As far as pavilion rentals go, first of all, we don't save parking spaces for people who have parties. If
Well,
it's,
Terry, identify, we know who you
oh,
are.
I'm sorry,
Just for
I'm
the-
Terry Finelli, Assistant Park Manager at Rye-Town Park. As far as music, we do make it a point, if the music is loud, we do have security go and ask them to turn it down. We tell them it's not a club, it's a public place, and it has to be at a certain level. We keep going if it goes, sometimes they'll like raise it up when we're not around, we go back and tell them. And we do tell them if it continues, we're going to shut you down, you're not allowed to, DJ has to stop, and that, the party stops. So we pretty much enforce that. And, we haven't had a point where we'd have to call the police. But that would be our next step. But pretty much everybody does adhere to what we ask. The one thing that does happen, and which, unfortunately we didn't know about this year, is on Sundays, Seaside Johnny's hired a DJ to be on the beach. And, you know, we didn't know about it, and, you know, when we asked, he said, well, you know, he told us he had permission to do it. So
Well,
we
did-
need to make sure that that doesn't happen again this year.
And
We
did
talked-
anyone,
We talked about this,
Right.
I believe, at a Wright Town Parks Commission
Yeah.
meeting, I think, Julie, just before you joined.
Yeah.
And we talked about the fact that, you know, what were they doing, limbo on the beach, Terry?
Yeah, they
and
were doing limbo.
They were doing a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
and they're not allowed to do that.
Right,
No, I mean, obviously, you know, this is a management
right.
operation, and sometimes things happen all of a sudden that this commission is not aware of, and when it's brought to the commission's attention, we have to take action on it.
Right.
You know, and
But it-
obviously, the staff on that particular day may not know whether the person has permission to do whatever the person is doing, and then you know, it'd be up to park management to call somebody
Right.
on the commission and find out from the commission
Right.
what, if there was something that was issued.
Right, and usually what happens with parking is, when we fill up the lot, we basically close for 1 hour, and then during that time, we reassess how many parking spaces we have as people leave, and then the hour we open back up again. It's just not worth letting 3 cars in at one time, and then having to stop and letting more in, so that's what we usually go by. We wait 1 hour, count how many parking spaces there are, and then the person up at the corner lets that many cars in, which usually at that point, it's at least 80 to 90 cars that we could let in rather than 5 and 10. Okay?
Thank you, Terry. Any other comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Russell Gold. This just, I understand today we will be speaking about the proposed fee schedule for 2016 season. Pardon the pun, but my 2 cents on this is that I would like to see that whatever price increases may be proposed, they be limited to non-residents only. I think the fee schedule is adequate for residents, and it's, our last survey we did a few years ago indicated that there are between 85 and 90% of the people that visit the park on the weekend are non-residents. And I would like to see maybe with the holding prices at the current level for residents might encourage more participation, more visits by residents.
Just a brief comment on that when we get to it. The proposed budget will contain fee increases only for non-residents.
Great.
That's what the proposal is. Of course, the commission has to vote on that.
In that case, I hope it gets adopted. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public, please? If not,
I just want to thank the Rhinebeck people for coming. You know, I've been sitting on this commission for 8 years, and I'm overjoyed. I'm actually like stumped. We have a Rhinebeck. I represent the Rhinebeck area. Yes, we do. It's very exciting. Bring the neighbors. Bring more people. You had the longest drive to come here, so we hear what you say, and we thank you for coming.
we will.
Thank you.
Just as an aside, we will at some point have a meeting in Rhinebeck.
We've done
So,
that before.
Yeah.
I know, but
Yeah.
when do we have one at the park? And a
Yeah,
nice,
at the high
we have to
school.
wait till it gets nicer. Do we
with
do we ever do
Rhinetown
that?
Park?
Yeah.
Well, the part of the
Exactly.
problem, no, Julie, part of the problem
know.
is
We
the,
can't
is the
film it.
access to the electronic equipment. So we're hoping we're gonna be able to, at some point, use the Rhinebeck High School. And, because they obviously have audio-video equipment that we would seek to use for our streaming video.
But we have an annual community conversation day at the park, which
Yeah.
we probably ought to
Yeah.
pick that date pretty soon, right?
How about doing it next meeting? Good idea.
Well,
Excellent.
whenever you do
Well,
it.
we usually do it
Just
on a
let me know.
Saturday.
Yeah, in June.
Well, let's
We
look
usually
at
do
our,
it in June.
let's look at our calendars. We can email each other and figure out a day that we will do that meeting.
Okay.
Okay? Film permit application. We have a young lady here who is a student, and why don't you tell us what your application is about?
My name is Carly Sposta, and I'm here regarding my...
Use the phone, please.
I'm here regarding my request for a film permit. I'm a senior at Eugene Lang, the New School for Liberal Arts, majoring in screen studies. For my capstone project, I had two options. One was to make a proposal and conduct independent research, or I could take a senior seminar course, of which there are also two. In Section A, students focus on writing a feature-length screenplay, and in Section B, which I chose to be in, we focus on directing for the screen. The goal of the course is to write, shoot, edit, and complete a narrative short film as both writer and director over the course of the semester. Student films are to be 8 to 15 minutes in length, and students must take all the necessary steps to reach this goal in a professional manner. Unlike film programs at schools like SVA or NYU, Screen Studies is a new major separated from the Media Studies department just last year. And due to this, we are not allotted budgets and have limited access to film-making equipment. My film takes place in an unnamed suburban town and focuses on the story of 3 recent college graduates. It explores themes of loss and friendship as the trio attempt to cope with the disappearance of their close friend from high school and grapple with the impulse to search for her. My opening scene, in which the 3 characters reconvene after graduation to reminisce about the last time they saw their lost friend, will take place at Rye Beach. I wanted to thank the people who helped me out with the waiver application process, and I was wondering how I pick it up because Debbie Reisner, informed me that I was granted the provisional waiver.
Well, we did that through email, but
Yeah.
we're going to make a motion tonight
Oh, okay.
to formalize the granting of the waiver.
All right. I've also brought a copy of my syllabus if you wanted it for any reason.
I make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Good luck.
None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
See, good luck. One thing, we want to see that when it's finished,
Okay,
okay?
not a problem.
Thank you. Good
Thank you.
luck. Park management report, which is going to be given by Bill this evening.
Good evening. Oh, they've left, but I just wanted to say that it's great to look around the room and see so many people here tonight, and a number of them are people who are directly involved with or supportive of the park. And certainly from my point of view, and I think all the staff would feel the same way, that we want to balance the need for parties to have fun versus the noise factor. One of the issues that I deal with is the various walkathons that we have. They tend to want to play very loud, uplifting music to get everybody out there and walking, but we have to make sure we keep the sound reasonable so that the neighbors who live in the area, being surrounded by a neighborhood of residents, you have to consider that. So I think that anything we can do to make sure that those sides are protected are important. Anyway, the report during the off-season, much of what I'm reporting on is stuff that I've done because, as you know, basically the park is not actively managed in the wintertime. We do have various services that come in and do maintenance and snow removal and so on like that. So pretty much most of what I'm going to tell you about is about what the things that I've been doing. And you could call that pretty much park development. You know, a lot of it is, building support among community residents. We have 3 different groups here tonight. We have the Rye-Town Park Advisory Committee, we have the Friends of Rye-Town Park, and we have a neighbor, Jamie Jensen, who is, I guess you could call the neighbor of Rye-Town Park. So I think this is an important part of what my role is to meet with people and try to find out areas where we can help each other, sort of be supportive. They call it building your support base, and not necessarily financial support, but really understanding what the park can do and how it can meet the needs beyond just people coming to the beach. So a lot of what I've mentioned in here has to do with things that hopefully will achieve that end. One of the things that I just wanted to comment about, it's interesting, being a Rye resident, I read the Rye Record police blotters, and I find out about what's going on at the park as far as police matters through the police bladder, because we don't have any real mechanism for reporting things that are happening that the police are involved with. Now, maybe it's too much to ask, but I think it might be something to at least consider, that if, let's say there was a case, one of the cases was a car was in the parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning and the police had to get them out, I would never have known about that if it hadn't been for the fact that I saw it in the Rye Record. So maybe it's something to think about. As far as, and also, you know, I'm over there every day at some point, but I don't always see it. So it was interesting to see that a number of people were given summonses as to the leash law. Because sometimes we hear people say, oh, they never enforce it, but obviously they are enforcing it. And we do have a new police commissioner in Rye. And I have to say that it seems as if I've heard not just things to do with Ryetown Park, but in general, there's a much more of an emphasis on enforcing the law than there was before. So, and for anybody who's here, I mean, and you see something like that going on, please feel free to call the police, because they are pledged to, that's part of their job, is to keep to enforce the leash laws. And you know, I mentioned in here that we've had a relatively mild winter. There were a couple days where it got really cold, and the storms that we've had have been relatively minor, and so there's been very minimal damage or anything that I can see to the park, which is good. In some years we've had really bad storms where we've lost a lot of trees, and so far, and as far as I can see, there's been no real beach erosion, which is a good thing, because we've spent somewhere around $12,000 or $13,000 a year for the past couple of years on just getting more sand in. Okay, I'm not going to go through everything because you have it all in front of you. So maybe I'll just update. And we have a representative from NAMI here who's going to be talking to you about the ribbon program. In terms of development, I have to say that I had put in my report that we'd raised $1,760 towards sponsorships at the outdoor activities. It's now up to $2,260 because we got another $500 that came in. And a lot of this has to do with my joining as Ryetown Park representative, the Chamber of Commerce. And it's through the Chamber that we've been able to really reach out to the business community. And even if they can't afford to sponsor events, that at least it makes them more aware of what's going on at the park, and hopefully they'll realize, you know, possibilities of working together as a partner. So I did want to mention briefly that in addition to
let me just interrupt. Which Chamber of Commerce?
Both. Well,
okay.
we belong to both, and
Okay.
we've been fairly active, more active in the Rye because they have monthly meetings, whereas the Portchester and Rye Brook doesn't. So I get many more opportunities to speak with the business. But a number of the donors, sponsors, have come from Rye Brook and Portchester. So, I mean, because when I give them, you all got a copy of the flyer that we send out about sponsoring the events at the park. And then the Rye Brook and Portchester, they'll send it out to all their members. And so that's been very helpful. Let's see. Talking about other things that are going on, Friends of Ryetown Park, we've been working to try to plant more trees. As you know, with Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy, we lost a lot of trees, and there were a number of dead trees from years back. And we've slowly but steadily been bringing the tree population back up again. We have an opportunity to spend, and it's actually just $555 to get 12 trees, because the New York Power Authority has a program where they will match. If you buy 3, they'll pay for 3. And so we're getting 6 sugar maples and 6 plane trees. And that's going to, the Friends have agreed to split the cost for that. So that means that, you know, we're getting support from them for that also.
Bill, on those planting of the trees, we do have a master plan, right? We developed that a few
Yes.
years back. Are you using that master plan
Yes.
for the replenishment, the reforestation that
Well,
you're talking about?
It's great because, you know, in the old days, you would just sort of guesstimate where you wanted to plant these trees. Now, with the GPS and this ArborScope program that we have through Bartlett, we can pinpoint exactly where they're going to be. And by looking at the map, which is updated as trees come in or go out, you know, we keep updating our inventory.
Right, but I'm saying you're following that plan that was worked with the Friends of the Park over the last few years. In terms of the new plantings.
Yes.
That the species are in line with the recommended
Well,
new plantings?
We didn't make a definitive plan as to which species, but the big thing is, and probably many of you know this, Norway maples, which are a non-native plant and they're very invasive, but they also they tend to break and crack, and so our main mission is to replace Norway maples, of which there are a lot, with other more appropriate
More hardy.
species. So the sycamores, the plane trees, which the sycamore, American sycamores, we have some beautiful ones there in the park now. They're very hardy. They've proven, that they're ideal for the kind of park. And in fact, the grant we're getting is designed to help, because it's coming from the New York Power Authority, that's designed to help to break down wind, sort of windbreaks and things like that. So that's why they're basically giving us these trees for nothing. And so the price would be, in order to get the trees, have them delivered, and planted through Bartlett, we'd be basically around $1,800, which the park would pay $900 and Friends would pay the other $900. So that won't actually happen until the fall. You have to put the orders in, but they wait till September to plant them because that's the best time to plant saplings, when the season is winding down and they'll go into a dormant stage. And all the trees we planted last year are all still healthy. So, knock on wood.
Good.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, so the other thing that I just briefly mentioned that, we're talking about working with partners to try to promote common interests. This group, which we call the Greater Playland Working Group, which is made up of people from Edith Reed Sanctuary, the Children's Museum, the Historical Society, Rye-Town Park, that whole area there, basically from up at the north back down to the end of Rye-Town Park, trying to develop programs and activities that would promote not just recreation, but also education, conservation, sustainability, resilience. Those are the kind of things we're working for. And I think that's one of the things that we want to get across, that it's a great place to go to the beach, but there's a whole lot of other things that the park provides in terms of safety and conservation. Let's see. And I guess Debbie's going to talk about what's going on with the RFQ.
Yeah, we're
You
not,
want to do
we're,
that now or later?
no, we'll do that towards the end. Are you finished with the manager report? Do we have a
Yeah,
separate?
I think,
do we se-
one other thing I just wanted to mention, and there's no rush in this, but those of you who've been on the commission know that last year we had a sculpture exhibit, which was, very, cutting edge, you might say. There were some people who loved it, some people who hated it. A lot of people did selfies with it. It was, we've been approached by a sculptor who is actually a member of the Art Student League and has sculptures. This has no women involved in it whatsoever in any way, and so.
Give us another way you can put that.
We like women involved.
Yeah,
It
well,
depends on,
we're bouncing with it, so we're going in a slightly different direction. This will be, since we're still in the preliminary stages of it, and we have to figure out who's going to pay for it. I don't want to get everybody's hopes up, but it's basically steel pieces that look like sails that, so that, it fits in sort of nautically with the idea, but it's 14 feet high, so it's a little bit of a challenge to figure out how that would get mounted and who would have to pay for it. So, but anyway, I feel like the more the park becomes involved with the artistic community, and we're actually working with the Rye Arts Center and Bob Clyde, who's a local sculptor, and he's been very helpful in donating his time and energies to trying to find potential sculptors. And so outdoor art can be a very fascinating thing, and many communities use it as a attraction for the public. Like if you've ever been to those cities where they have cows that were painted by various artists and stuff like that. It's just another way to develop the park as more than just a place to swim. And let's see. Just other thing is that in responding to the community, people, frankly, it's been great because a lot of people, when somebody says to them, can we do this at the park? They say, well, call Bill Lawyer. And, so I've been getting a lot of phone calls from teachers, from from scout leaders, and I think as much as we can, we will continue to work with these groups, trying to figure out what they can do, you know, that would be helpful to the park, that's safe and wouldn't, you know, be causing other problems. So if anybody has concerns or ideas about what they might be able to do or volunteer with, let me know, and I'll do everything I can to work with them.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Oh, yeah, there's 7 concerts, but that's not till June, so we have a long time before that. But I will have a final official version of the schedule, including the Shakespeare and the outdoor movie, which is going to be because of Winn-Dixie, which is one of my
Great
favorite
movie.
movies
Great book.
from years ago. Okay, so that's it.
Bill, can I just ask you one thing? You are on your written report recommending having a community conversation in April or May, and I know we just talked about June. It would make sense to me to have it before people have to
Well-
start paying to come in.
In the past, either we've done them really early in the year, like January, February, but mostly we've done them in April or May, before the season starts. So, and the season starts basically on a Memorial Day weekend. So you never know what the weather's going to be like. We've had it, and we use the pavilions without any.
Last year it was freezing.
We use the pavilions if the weather's good. Last year we had sort of lousy weather, but we still had 25 or 30 people showed up. So, and we went into the winter office and we were packed in like sardines. I think you were there. So.
Yeah,
When was it last year?
It was in May
I
sometime.
believe it was sometime in May.
Maybe
It was before Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
It's-
I would
May
recommend
has
it
a
be
5
either
weeks
late
in it this
April
year.
or early May. So, you know, that's something. And I'm not sure, how many people are gonna show up, but I think the idea that we're doing it, and we'll send out press releases about it and everything, it lets people at least get an idea that we wanna hear what they have to say.
Well, I mean, should we
Memorial
make-
Day is late this year. There's actually 5 weeks in May.
Why don't we
so-
try to, how about?
pick a
The
date.
Saturdays are the 14th and 21st, the last 2 in May. 7th, 14th, and 21st.
We want to make it, I think we want to make it fairly late so that we run into less problems with the
Oh,
weather.
that's right, the NAMI walk is the 21st. That's a
14th.
Saturday? So maybe the 14th would be better. Because they're using the pavilion.
Wanna do it the
Well,
May 14th?
and they normally go from 10 to 11:30.
Why don't we just say the 14th,
14th,
depending
I
on
think the
CP,
14th.
Debbie checking, or anybody if there's
Yeah.
other events, but that looks good.
They suggested May
When is
14th
Mother's
from
Day?
10 to
11:30.
I think Mother's Day is the 8th, so it's not Mother's Day, it's not Memorial Weekend, it's
Wow.
not
Okay,
NAMI
no,
weekend.
that sounds like a
Sounds
good time,
good.
May 14th.
All right. It's on my calendar.
Any other questions? No?
No. Thank you, Bill. Do we have a separate Friends of Rye Town report? Or let's do the NAMI first, since you mentioned NAMI.
Hi, I'm Christina Bauzo. I'm with NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I'm with the Westchester chapter. I'm a board member, and I'm also, I've been presenting for NAMI for the last 2.5 years. And just like a brief background on what NAMI is we are a grassroots organization. We're self-help and a support organization. We don't charge any fees for any of our programs. We're funded by grants, we're funded by memberships when people join NAMI, and it's a national organization, so we're all throughout the country. And our main goal throughout Westchester County and what they do at the national level too, but where we really focus in on Westchester is to provide support about mental illness for people living with mental illness, consumers, educate and advocate for people living with mental illness. I myself am a consumer, so I feel strongly about advocating for mental illness and being a part of NAMI. And as we just mentioned, on May 21st, we're having our, I think it's our 2nd annual Rye Town Park walk with NAMI walks here at, is it the 3rd? It's the 3rd, sorry. So which is really exciting because it went so well. I was a part of it last year. Last year was my first NAMI walks. So we're really excited to be back here. And one of the main reasons why we want to propose to have ribbons put up this year is we have, I think you guys have the flyer, and I actually have extra copies if anybody wanted to look at it. we've been doing this since 2013, and we've been going around communities in Westchester, the towns that we support, and trying to get more towns on board, especially ones that we serve. Because we're in high schools, we're in elementary schools, we're starting to do a lot of college outreach, as well as like libraries. I recently spoke at Mamaroneck Library. So we're trying to really educate the community to stomp out stigma. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so that's why we have our walk there. And then the point of having the ribbons is really to have people spark a conversation and get the word out about, stomping out stigma and saying, it's okay to talk about mental illness and why are we doing this and why, raise awareness. People put up ribbons for breast cancer and, you see pink, you know what it is. So we want mental illness to be just as talked about, just as aware, not as weird or scary to be, talked about. So that's our mission at NAMI. So what we would like to propose is the weekend of April 30th to May 1st, NAMI representatives would be happy to put up ribbons if you see fit. We'll remove them at the end of May. It'll be totally on us, again, NAMI representatives. And it would be nice to have them up for May 21st, which is when we have our walk. And if you see fit, then you could just let us know where we could put them up over that weekend. And I think it would be really great to have, Rydtown Park community, a part of the conversation and, going along with the lines of, with NAMI.
I think that, do we need a motion on that?
We passed it in Rye, I think we had a motion.
And we did it in
We had a
Rybrook
motion.
as well.
All right.
Okay.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Can you say your name again? I apologize.
Christina Bauzo,
Christina.
thank you. Thank you very much.
And you can work with park staff to figure out exactly where the flags would be going.
Okay, and if I could ask, it would be really helpful, I think maybe the other towns might have done this already, but just to have a letter written to NAMI so then that the town is allowing that, so like if a cop says, what are you doing for the people that weekend putting them up? Because I think we've run into problems with that like in other counties, in other towns before, just to have like, so they can maybe have on their phone like an email or something like that, written permission that says, we're doing
Ms.
this. and
Reisner
it's-
could take
it's
care of
allowed.
that for you.
Okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank
Deb,
you.
why don't you just copy our police commissioner, if you would?
Absolutely.
Do we have a report from the Friends of Rydtown Park?
Good evening, everybody. My name's David Rasmussen. I'm the former president and currently a board member of the Friends of Rydtown Park. And just very briefly, since I wasn't aware that we were going to be making a presentation this evening, I'd just like to very briefly tell you a little bit about what the Friends do in the Rydtown Park. We've been an advocate for many, many years for passive recreational uses of various kinds in the park. We've also done a great deal of work in terms of improving the park, which was 20 years ago or so when we started back in 1990. The park was in a serious state of disrepair. Since that time, the Friends have undertaken many projects, including the relighting of the park, the erection of the fence along the beach walkway between the park and the beach, planting hundreds of trees, many flowering bulbs. We engineered and raised money for the expansion of the duck pond to close to its original size. We put in a number of gardens, so there's a number of things that we've done. We also initially began the concert program and the movie program that takes place in the summer, which now has been taken over by Bill and the Park Commission. We are continuing to support the park in as many ways as we can. We're able to raise a number of private funds. We're a tax-exempt, not-for-profit organization. So that's essentially what we do, and I think, unless there's any questions, that's basically a brief summary of what the Friends is all about.
And you do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. The financial report. Debbie, I think this is yours. Budget discussion?
Yes. Give me a second, please. Okay, so for the financial report, which begins on page 16 of your packet, I start with a summary budget. As you may know, it gets fairly involved. In response to the discussion last month, I've developed several scenarios. One being revenue increases, and also there are several specifics with regard to expenses. So if you look at page 16, there are two scenarios for expense increases with regard to wages of the staff of the park, which of course is the lion's share of the costs of the park. So one is outlines a 2% increase over wages from 2015, and that's for hourly workers only, not for park director level. And then the other possibility would be only an increase for the minimum wage workers. Mayor Sack had asked what that would look like, so I had modeled that as well. And the discussion was also that if we're going to be increasing wages to whatever extent, that some adjustment has to be made with regard to revenues. So we still do not have firm numbers on 2015. And so in order to figure out what might be an appropriate increase, I modeled out both what no increase would look like, what an increase with of a 2% across the board increase in fees might look like, and also what an increase would look like if we just increased non-resident fees. And I did that with regard to the estimates that staff had made for what 2015 might have looked like, and that's adjusted for the number of days in the season. If you recall, in 2015 there were 109 days in the season, and yet a typical season is 102 days. So all of those numbers have been adjusted down and back up again. So we're looking at 102-day seasons. And then I also used a year-on-year analysis prepared by park staff. And essentially what I did was I focused on the units of permits and parking and cars, et cetera. And I used those as a basis for adjusting, for taking a look at what that adjustment might look like. So let's see, where are we? Yeah, okay, so with regard to the adjustments in fees, the 2%, I'd like just to say that I just sort of put a blanket 2% increase, which if you take a look at the wages and fees on page 29. Right, you'll see that, I'm sorry, it looks like page 26 to me here. If you look on the far right, there's two columns far to the right. I've sort of grayed out the preceding years. 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015 are all sort of in gray. So highlighted are two possible scenarios for 2016. One is an across-the-board 2%. And, a lot of those...
Okay, yeah, for me it's 29.
It is, oh, good.
29.
Okay.
You'll notice that there are a lot of coins. There's a lot of change, right? Because when you do a 2% increase, you're coming up with a lot of cents. I highly recommend that if you choose this option, that we round up to the nearest dollar or 50 cents so that the park staff is not drowning in change all summer long. The alternative is further to the right, a fees adjustment that might look something like this, which is, raising up to the nearest dollar. And
David, let me cut you off a second. I'm going to recommend, I don't know how the others feel, I mentioned it when, when the gentleman was speaking earlier about resident, non-resident fees. I'm going to recommend that we just increase the non-resident fees and leave the resident fees as they are. I think we get, it seems to me, a
So this
greater
whole,
increase.
we can just ignore this whole
Yeah,
column
that-
here.
right,
It's
right.
on the last one.
Yeah, and according to the chart, if we do that, then we're getting, getting to that 933 figure on page 16. Am I correct, Debbie?
that's right.
And that gives us actually a greater increase, and it does not impact our residents.
That's right.
And I would also like to suggest that we increase the 2% wage across the board, because I think if we only increase to the minimum wage, then we're leaving all the other workers that are slightly above minimum wage without any increase at all, which I don't think is fair. So my suggestion is that we increase all of the workers so that the minimum wage workers go up to the proper amount, but that everybody else gets increased proportionally. And I think that's the fairest way to do it. My suggestion.
So, thank you, Gary, and thank you, Debbie, for doing this. Two things. On the fee side, the parking and the beach fee, if it goes up by 8%, I see the total number. And on page 29, I see what it would be. But what I'd like to see is just compare it, what it was last year to what it is, what it may be this year. Like, what's the parking going to go up to, from what to what?
Right, so.
Because I think the part of that analysis we also have to do is
Yeah.
what is Playland charge? So we know we're not charging more than Playland.
Well, we actually did take a look at what Playland charges, and interestingly enough, this year, Playland is increasing its charge, but as I understand it, they're increasing it to $15 a car on the weekends, and from $7 to $10 during the week. So we've been charging more than Playland all along. We currently charge $15 per car for non-residents on the weekend. And so I'm suggesting that we raise that maybe to $20 a car, for example.
Okay. So I like how the number comes out to be a higher number, but I guess the one thing we always have to worry about, as we talked about at the last meeting, is the supply and demand thing of,
Yeah,
if we do raise the
absolutely.
rates, do people continue to come? I happen to think they probably will, but we don't know that for sure.
Yeah,
Well, there's-
We think so too. It's going to be a guess either way, and of course, it's all going to be depending on the weather.
Right.
Right, I mean, some of the increases that, whoops, I'm flipping around here.
It's a beautiful summer day. Nobody's going to say, I'm not going to Rye-Town Park because it's $20 versus $17 or $15.
Right, and
like
the other issue is if if you've been charging people, for a permit $50, if you're charging them $60, or a family permit $200, it's been, the non-resident family
Yeah.
permit has been $230. If you raise it to $250, I don't think.
I think it's still a great deal, but we just have to factor in the psychology of it too, which we don't know.
Exactly,
But,
exactly.
So with regard to the 2% increase versus just the minimum wage increase, I'm torn on that one. On the one hand, I'd like everyone to get an increase. On the other hand, we're not the ones that made the minimum wage $9 either. And, we have this problem of trying to balance our budget, and so I would probably lean towards just increasing the minimum wage. I mean, every year we get so many more applicants than spots, right? So it's not like people are not going to apply for this job if they're not getting more money, if they're not getting the 2% wage. So I'm torn on it. As I said, I'm very ambivalent, but if you ask me my opinion, I would say that, especially given the very tight margins we have with our budget, that we ought to leave it just to the increase in the minimum wage.
Can,
Terry?
A lot of a lot of our staff right now doesn't even meet, that we have working, doesn't even meet the minimum requirement. And, you know, if you're gonna increase them to $9 and they've been there for 4 years, and you're not gonna give, you're gonna
No,
give
we're not
some-
increasing them, the state of New York is increasing them.
Right, but what I'm saying,
Governor Cuomo's
right,
doing
right,
it,
right.
not me, not us.
Right, but what I'm saying is if you're not gonna give those people any kind of a raise, why would they come back? And then, you know, they're making the same money that somebody that hasn't been there at all is now making because of Governor Cuomo.
I
And
know,
I don't think we
they
should,
will come back.
I don't think we should blame Governor Cuomo or the legislature. I mean, it was passed by the legislature as well. So.
I'm just going by what
Can I
Mr.
ask a
Sack is
question?
saying.
Do we
I'm
have?
not blaming
and-
anyone, I'm just, it happened, and we didn't do
Well,
it,
it's
so we're
not,
dealing
it's
with it.
$9, it's $9, and if we don't give our long-term employees who are just above that a reasonable increase, then we may not have them back. Or I don't think they should be forced to come, they don't have any other jobs, so they have to come back and work for us. I just don't think it's fair
Can I
that
just,
we do that.
I just
Julie?
don't have a sense of how many people we have at minimum wage, how many people that is, then who's the next level up and what are they making?
There was
Like
a
2%
chart.
means nothing to me because I have just no sense of,
Um,
sorry, and I'm new, so I'm still learning
No,
about
that's all right.
this.
They're the organizational chart.
I saw the chart, I know, sorry, it's hard to,
What page was it on?
I read a lot of this on my computer.
Oh, here it
which
is.
Is not.
32.
okay.
Thank you.
Every time I turn on the TV, I see ads by Governor Cuomo saying we should raise it to $15.
Well,
So,
that
you
was
know,
going to be my next
I don't think
question.
he looks at it as being
Have
blamed,
we
but-
looked, and maybe this is down the road, but have we looked at what the effects are on our budget if indeed
Okay.
that does get passed?
We have not. I did not model.
I know,
if-
you've been doing a lot of modeling, I totally
Are we talking
understand
about
that, but,
$9 or
However-
$15?
But in answer to your
well,
question.
no,
of who's-
$15.
Oh, 15, no.
I mean, if that, I know it's phased in, so it would, but it would be interesting to see how we're gonna get.
I don't think, Julie, if they raise it to that, I think that we could model it at that time. But right now, we're dealing with a simple figure.
And I can
I'm a
tell
finance
you-
person, I do
Right.
things like that.
I can tell you right off the bat, security makes at least $4 more than minimum wage to begin with. They don't start at minimum wage. The maintenance staff neither, and neither do the lifeguards. They're well above minimum wage as their starting salaries.
I think we accounted for that,
The
though.
only ones that actually are affected by minimum wage are the cashiers and the parking kids. That's it.
Right.
So maybe if you want to raise people by 2%, maybe we need to cut staff, so that you can be fair to the people that work here, but we can't have as many people work here anymore.
Joe, are you serious about that?
Are you serious about saying, are you serious? Yes, I am, Gary.
Can I ask a question? If it goes, what would make sense to me if we do agree and that 2% does go in the budget, to then have someone sit down and actually look at how many people we have at every position, what they're making, and, you know, maybe how long they've been there and what makes sense. So instead of doing it across the board, I mean, maybe it's in the budget, you know, there's always things in budgets that are spent or not spent. Like,
No, I
to
think-
me,
I
that would be
think-
the view of, and I don't know, again, I'm new, so I don't know who
Are you
is
suggesting-
managing that process, but someone would say, how many people do we have at this position? What are they making? How long have they been here? I mean, if they all make the same, like everyone in, you know, parking assistant, all the parking assistants make the same, no matter how long they've been here. So,
You
and
know,
that would not be the purview of this
Right.
group. We just approve the budget.
There's been, you know, I think over the years, we have trimmed staff significantly. I think if you compare the model that we have now in terms of staffing levels to what it was 5 years ago, I would venture a 25% decrease in staffing levels. And that's to the credit of this commission, you know, desiring that we present ourselves as a public entity, and we're not overloading, and we're not, you know, doing things that we're not supposed to be doing. So in conscious of that, the ability for employees to return to work for the park, I think we've always recognized a slight benefit to that, you know, $1 an hour increase. And we're all in the public domain in one respect or another, and having, rewarding people, good employees, because the park staff people, they vet out the employees that are rewarding enough to come back. And there's a benefit to that, because you have a learning curve that you don't have to worry about every year. You have returning employees that have a significant amount of interest in working again for the park. They're teaching the new folks that come in. And these are, your high school, your college students who are looking to come back. And I think, you have to, in my view, my opinion, an extra $1 an hour or above the new person coming in, I think that's just should be expected.
And I think
I'm
it's
in
only-
favor of that.
I think it's only fair.
But that would be
But
for,
do you-
that would be only for returning employees. This
Correct.
doesn't discriminate
No.
between returning or
No,
new.
but a returning employee
So
should be
I could-
making
I
more
could-
as the minimum
I could be
employee
maybe
level.
persuaded to your view, but that's not what's being presented to us here.
I always thought that all the employees would start as the discussion was had. The new employees coming in would be at the same rate of pay as a returning employee at that $9 an hour. And I don't think that's fair. I think there should be a separation between a new employee and a returning employee. And for every year, it should be an increase of at least $1 an hour.
I think that some of the decision has to be made by management as to who to hire, at what rate. We're setting a budget, which basically is a maximum that we're looking at. We're setting a budget for how much money we think we're going to spend. That doesn't mean that management needs to spend the maximum and is always going to look
No doubt.
to minimize the expenses. So that the fact that they have the ability to hire somebody at $12 an hour, if, say, slightly more experienced person who's a parking attendant or maintenance person, and somebody new is going to come on board and they can hire them at $11 an hour, they can do that. The problem is if we miss the budget, then we have to pay more money at the end. If we hit the budget or come under the budget, then we operate on a surplus. But the budget is a guide. It's not something that, we try to keep to it, but it's not necessarily written in stone for every day that you're going to have a certain number of employees per day. For example, if you have bad weather and Parks Management says, okay, nobody come to the park today, well, that means that day nobody's getting paid. So you're saving money. If you have an overcrowded, if you see that it's a situation where you have to call more people in, for example, because you have more people coming into the park on a certain day, management may call people in. Well, you may have more revenue because there are more people, but you're also going to have more expenses because you need, parking attendants, cashiers, et cetera, to handle them. That's a management decision that has to be made on a day-by-day basis every day.
Yeah, but that happens every year.
Yes, it
That happened
does.
before we got here, it'll happen after we got here.
That is-
What do
that
we
is-
pay those people?
Well, I mean, a lot of times, Gary, what you're saying is that when an employee, they don't really they have a fixed schedule, but then they don't. If the weather's bad, they're sent home, and they're not really making any money when they're sent home. So they don't get a chance to recoup the hours lost that week. So in the old days, those employees would stick around because everybody felt bad to send them home. We have made it very clear, if the beach is closed or the park is closed and things are weather-related, send them home. So that person who's committed before the summer starts to work for the park gets sent home. He or she is not making those few dollars that they would normally have made if the weather was good. So I think that there's a lot of variables here, and I totally agree. It's a management. Well, let's set the budget, and I think the management of it should follow right behind it.
Well, I'm being told here that there will be a flat budget if we increase wages for hourly workers, non-management workers, by 2%, and we increase the non-resident fees by 8%. So
What page are you on?
I'm on page 16 still.
Oh, that's a
So
2%.
based on that, I could go along with that for the sake of, getting a budget approved for tonight, but I still have concerns.
I mean, I would just say that I'm not opposed to putting money in to increase some of the pay, but I just would hope that management that's looking at each person and how they've done, and whether it's someone coming back, and if they've done a good job, maybe they get an increase. If it's someone new, maybe they start at whatever the starting point is, and we reward those who have worked hard and done a good job, and those that maybe haven't,
That's
don't.
agreed.
And that also an understanding of, and you've probably already done this, but what are other clubs paying? What are other clubs paying lifeguards? Are we within the, realm of what other people are paying? And, other clubs have the same issue. There's, it's
I'm not-
raining, the
I'm not
lifeguards don't come in. So anyway, again, I'm maybe
Other clubs
telling
are
you
paying
things that you already
lifeguards.
know and you already do, but I'm
Other
new.
clubs are paying lifeguards significantly more. This is a public beach, remember, so.
But they don't, the clubs don't pay so much.
Yeah, but
From what
I
I
have a
hear.
feeling that the clubs pay their lifeguards on a rainy day.
They do. There is
They
a
do.
commitment
They
to
do.
that. We actually
They
looked
do.
at that.
So,
And they're very hard to find, lifeguards.
So, Debbie, you want to move
They
on?
are, and that is true.
Sure. You want me to continue discussing
Yeah.
details about the
I
budget?
just want to make
or-
an announcement. There are people here for the Rye Town Council meeting. It's obvious that the Rye Town Park Commission meeting is running a bit long and will continue to run a bit long. So please bear with us. Thank you.
So right now, as a basis, we're looking at a 2% increase on the non-resident, on the non-resident side of the equation.
No, you're looking at a 2% increase
Increase
for
of the-
wages.
Wait, okay.
And it sounds as if we're looking at an approximately 8%
8%
increase
on
for
the-
non-resident
Correct.
fees
Okay.
across all
Across-
the non-resident categories.
Okay.
But there's no other increases to any other management salaries.
No, I hadn't discussed that. The assistant director salaries are, the assistant director salary for finance, which is Terry Finelli, that has moved out of the cashier line in the detailed budget, and it's now in the park director's line, which is in line with her title and also the role that she plays.
I'm sorry, what page are you directing us to?
Deb, can I ask a favor next time? I'm gonna undo it now.
Don't staple?
I would ask not to staple.
I have a robo stapler. I will definitely,
I want mine stated.
definitely won't staple. Okay, here,
I think we're on 24.
Yeah, 24.
24, okay, so there's a budget cover page for revenues, and then, okay. So, under the operating budget, halfway down the page, expenses start, and under directors, it's 99,339. All of the directors are in there, so that would include Bill Lawyer's compensation. We've increased him slightly because we're planning on having him work more hours.
Where's note 8? It says C note 8.
It's actually a B.
B?
Yes,
Sorry, what do you mean it's actually?
that's okay, and.
Oh, no, B. Oh, I thought it was 18.
Let me look for revenue assumptions. It's just following the budget. Rye Town Park 2016 revenue assumptions.
Oh, here.
Oh, excuse me, not revenue assumptions, expense assumptions.
So the,
Page 33.
for the
B.
40, to get us the 48,298 number for 2015 was made up of,
Hold on, I just flipped away. Yes, in other words, the 48,298 was Bill Lawyer and Freddie Joffrey together, but not including Terry Finelli, the park director for finance.
So the
Okay.
hourly
So-
workers go up 2% and the managers go up 50%? Actually, 100%.
Well,
It's going from 50 to
no,
100,000.
we're withdrawing, we're taking, if you go down to the cashier's line, you'll see that.
that's going from 97 to 69. And that is, the difference in there is the 23,806? So are there, so just, when we're
Yeah,
trying to
it should be-
reconcile here, there's, in addition to moving the categories, there's also increases in here?
There's one increase. Terry, the park director for finance stays the same.
I don't understand what you
Park-
mean by the park, I don't know the
Terry
term.
Finelli.
Oh,
Terry
park
Finelli
director
is
for
staying the same.
finance, okay.
Yes.
Got it.
And Bill Lawyer is staying the same. We're increasing his hours slightly, from 17 and change up to 18. And we've increased the salary for the park director, and that's notable, up to 58,000.
And
the
what was
reason-
it?
And the reason,
And-
the
go ahead.
reason for that is, as I've discussed with the members of the commission previously, is the possibility of making a change. And at this point, if you would like to discuss that, I'd like a motion to go into executive session.
Debbie, can you, before we do that, can you, what's it going from to, it's going 258 from what?
I think it's 33.
Wow.
I'll make that motion that we go into executive session to discuss personnel.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. All right,
Do we have a place to even go?
I don't think we have a place to go.
Judges chamber.
It's not, it's not-
What are you at, yoga? No, I'm kidding.
Monday the
You have a
21st.
real job?
I do.
How's the week of the 21st?
You're a good man for doing
The
this.
week of the 21st, I have a village board meeting. Oh, that's next week.
It's
I
school
am-
break next week.
It is school break,
Oh, it
but
is
I
school,
am
okay.
here, but.
What about Wednesday, March 23rd? Well, you're in the city all day, right?
I am, but actually, I'm not sure if I'm having surgery tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm going to be. I have a hernia.
Can we do this by email and see
No.
what addresses are?
We can't,
Well,
we
wait,
could
but
pick a
so-
date, but you can't
I
vote by
think we need to
email.
figure
No,
out
just-
how.
just to
No,
pick
no,
a
no,
date.
yeah,
Just to
that's
pick a
fine,
date.
that's fine.
How
You
we're gonna
definitely
get to a point where we,
try to ask that
I'm
question.
okay if the salary is not increased.
We gotta go to print soon, that's the thing.
We're out of executive session, and I apologize to everybody. The Wright Town Park meeting is, Wright Town Park Commission meeting will continue. We're skipping over for now the rest of the budget discussion. Wright Town Park Operations and Restaurant RFQ. I would just like to report on that I have spoken to several potential responders, and I am expecting that we will have a minimum of 3 responses. One of them may be a restaurant-only response, and 2 to 3 will be responses for the full RFQ. Does anybody else have any comment about that?
Only that I'd like to be aware of who you spoke with and what the conversations were, but beyond that, not at this time.
I'll be happy to do that. I don't know if that's a, I could do that in public. Would you like me to
No,
to announce that?
I don't think
I
you
don't know whether
should.
you, I don't know
isn't
whether
there-
you
there's
can or not,
confidentiality.
Pardon?
but this is news to me,
I
so
don't
I'd like
think
to,
that you can.
I'd like to be aware.
No,
Aren't there-
I'm
aren't there-
saying that I've had discussions with a couple of people who said they are going to respond. We've got questions from 2 of the potential applicants. We have responded to those questions, and Debbie, That's on the website? We put the responses on the website?
I didn't get it up today. They'll be up tomorrow.
Okay. One of the questions was submitted by the City of Rye. And there were responses to the City of Rye's questions. I assume that both of our city representatives are aware of that.
Debbie, when you held up the three fingers, was
There were
that to
three.
indicate that there were three questions or three questioners?
Three parties submitted questions in writing.
Because when I asked
One
that
today.
question,
I
was
told you
there
the
was only
truth.
one.
That's
Okay.
absolutely true, because
Okay.
the other questions were submitted subsequently to that.
So they didn't meet the deadline,
Correct.
okay?
And I forwarded you one that I got. I forwarded to the rest, to all the members of the commission today. I believe the questions came in yesterday. I've said,
I'm sorry, that was
forwarded
a
by email, a separate email.
separate email.
We'd have to
You
call our
received it,
IT
Paul?
guy.
Yeah.
Benny, you received it? The questions from one of the potential,
No. I did not.
well, it was sent to the same email. We're going to have to check these emails.
I don't know if it's your emails or ours. I didn't get,
Send it from the.
This was
Rye
from
Town of
your-
Rye- Yeah, Town of Rye email.
443.
Oh,
that
Gary
was
sent
the,
it. Oh,
that was
RFQ
the,
questions.
that was this
RFQ
one.
questions.
Okay.
443, I was driving,
No, not
yes.
that one. Separate,
Yeah, Standard Amusements.
yeah.
I didn't read it, but I saw it.
Go check with our,
You're on there.
I know, no, I see us on here, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not on our email.
Yeah,
I
didn't
believe
know
you. So there's gotta be something
All right,
some
anyway, that's
disturbing.
Any other questions on the Rye Town Park operation and restaurant RFQ? Betty mentioned the name of the person who sent in the questions, and that was United Park, since Benny already mentioned it. United Park sent in the questions, and the third set of questions, which I don't think I've seen, Debbie and I discussed it on the phone, is somebody who's responding only on behalf of the restaurant for the RFQ. So, any other questions on the operations and restaurant RFQ? No. Next is old business, the ramp plan. I don't have anything on that. In fact, my original did not have that on it. I had old business, but nothing there. Do we have anything on the ramp
I
plan?
had made a note that I was going to speak with Lisa Easton to pick up the plans, speak with the park manager to
Okay.
go out there, and I didn't do that. Didn't know who the park manager was, so hopefully I'll be able to do it this time around.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
All right. Any new business? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, I just
All
have
in
one
favor?
comment, I'm sorry. I did have an update from the county's project on the sewer project at the park. It's being postponed from, it was supposed to start this month. It's being postponed to the fall. In light of, in light of the Playland's other activity going on, so they're gonna do it in the fall. The contract
Okay.
is ready to go.
So they're doing stuff over at Playland too, and they're just gonna do it all at the same time? Is
Yes,
that
they're gonna
the
wait till the fall.
issue? Seems to
Okay.
make sense.
All right. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.